Yesterday, we discussed the Liberal Party of Canada's housing plan. Today, we're going to discuss the Conservatives and the NDP's alternative, and we're going to contrast the three against each other in order to help you determine which one has the best housing plan. But before we get into it, do me that favor, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell. Please hit that like button so more people like you can see this video, and don't forget about our race to 25,000 subscribers, where one lucky subscriber is going to win $5,000 to put towards their savings, their investments, to maybe pay down their mortgage, or for those of you who haven't already bought a home, you can use it for your down payment as well. But it's up to the winner to decide what he wants to do with it or she wants to do with it. But one thing is for certain, in order to win, you have to be subscribed. So go ahead, click that subscribe button. It's free, it's easy, and it's definitely worth it. The definitive guide on how to manage your credit. Product, penalty, price, in that order. It's never been more important to get your mortgage right. Okay, so let's get into it. Let's discuss the Conservatives and the NDP's, respectively, their housing plans. And I'm going to start off by saying, first and foremost, if this election was all based on marketing and who did the best job of communicating their message, at least online, the Liberals have the Conservatives and the NDP beat hands down. The Liberals obviously came out with an entire website dedicated to the Liberal housing plan, identifying that this is a key issue in the economy right now and it deserves its own platform for messaging. However, the Conservatives and the NDPs have done a pretty horrible job of this. I'll show you that in a second. They have put out plans with respect to housing. However, they've both made it very hard to find on their websites. They've made it very hard to figure out exactly what they want to do. And in fact, they've almost made it so that you have to go to the mainstream media in order to figure out exactly what their plans are, because quite honestly, the communication in the documents that they have provided is atrocious. So right now, just out of the gate, if elections were all based on marketing, and in a lot of ways they are, the Liberals kick the Conservative and the NDP's butts with respect to the messaging and their platforms and the way that they're putting this out to Canadians. So I want to jump in first and foremost and just show you the difference here. So this is the Liberals' housing plan website. You can see that it is absolutely very, very, very well done. In fact, all three of the big federal parties, the NDP, the Conservatives, and the Liberals, they all have very, very, very well done websites. And this housing website, this housing specific website, is really, really, really well done. Easy to identify the points. When you jump into the points and you go in and take a look at the content, there's bolding, there's bulleting in other sections. It's just really easy to understand. The Liberals did a very, very good job on this. By the way, there are other parties, the Green Party, the Bloc Québécois. For the most part, I'm going to cover the big three because those are the ones most likely to be leading our country going forward. And I'm going to discuss their housing plans versus the housing plans of the other parties, just because it makes the most sense to cover these three. By the way, I don't think there's any chance that the NDP is going to be in government, but they do have some interesting ideas. So I do want to contrast those from the far left side against the Conservatives from the far right, and the middle, which is the Liberal Party in between. So that's the Liberals website, really, really, really well done. If you go and you take a look at the Conservative website, yeah, it's nice. It's not as well done. It's not as easy to navigate as the Liberal parties. And then in order to get to their actual housing details, you have to open up their you have to open up their platform document, which is 167 pages long. And you have to get down to about the 54th page before you start looking at their housing plan. As you can see, it is 1 page for the image, 2 pages, 3 pages, 4 pages long, very dense, very hard to discern any sort of real information out of this document unless you go into detail and read it. If you're going to read it, I highly recommend having at least a couple of glasses of wine, a beer, a scotch, something in order to help get you through it, because quite honestly, as far as messaging goes, this is probably one of the worst documents I have seen in a long time when it comes to getting information about a topic that is really, really important that everybody understands, but putting it in a manner that is really not easy for people to understand. When you think about reading levels, and the rule of thumb for when you're writing a website or writing a document is, if you're going out to the masses, you want to have it written at about a grade 5 reading level in order to make it really easy to understand and read. This is clearly done at a significantly higher level than that. It's dense, it's hard to understand, and it does a really poor job of communicating exactly what the plan is. I'm not going to read this to you. If you want to go read it, go ahead, but I'm going to guess that most people are going to take a pass on opening up this document. Now, if you want to go and take a look at the NDP's website, again, very nicely done website, looks great, but they again made the information with respect to a really big topic in the election campaign, which is housing, really, really hard to find. In fact, I had to use the search functionality on their website in order to find it. And then once you get to it, it is very, very, very much a hard website to read, just from the perspective of, instead of doing bullet points or making it easy to go in and take a look at the actual points that they're trying to make, they've created a whole bunch of fluff in paragraph format in order to try and sell you the ideas rather than just tell you what they are. And if you go and take a look, I mean, again, glass of wine, bottle of scotch, whatever you need to get through this, but this is a document that is just, for most people, not something that they're going to be going through, and really, again, pretty hard to find on their website. So the whole point of the first part of this conversation is, if you were looking at this election from the perspective of a marketing campaign, the Liberals would kick butt. Very much, elections are a marketing campaign, and they are doing a significantly better job, at least online, of conveying their message than the other parties are, and that's for sure. By the way, one other thing I have to show you, just because I think it's hilarious. Like I've said before, I'm pretty much politically agnostic, but this is the front page of the Conservatives' Canadian Recovery Plan. I don't know what Aaron O'Toole is wearing here, but he has quite the interesting look for somebody who's running to be the Prime Minister of Canada. I'm going to leave the comments on the outfit alone, but for those of you who would like to leave comments about the outfit and tell me what you think of this outfit, go ahead, put that in the comments section below. I'm certainly expecting there's going to be some funny comments. So in order to really contrast the three platforms, we're going to go back to our favorite news outlet, BNN Bloomberg, because they quite honestly cover these things better than pretty much any other news outlet in the country. And we're just going to take a look. Oh, by the way, they've made this really easy because they created bullet points. They did all the reading for you, and they've identified the key issues for each of the parties and what they're going to do. So yesterday we discussed the Liberals. There's a whole bunch of things that they're offering to do. Obviously, doubling the first-time homebuyers tax credit, creating a hybrid RSP TFSA account, which allows you to get the tax deductions and then also pull the money out tax-free for a down payment, up to $40,000 if you are up to 40 years old. Banning blind bidding, which again, I think is a bad idea compared to a live auction system. Live auction systems would be significantly worse for housing prices in Canada. And then among other things, having a conversation around foreign buyers and so on and so forth. So pretty comprehensive. They obviously put out their housing platform after the other parties, and they did a really, really good job of it. There's some things that aren't likely to happen, but there are some things that are really, really good ideas in this as well. Now, if we go in and we take a look at the NDP's plan, some good things here, some bad things here. First and foremost, introducing a 30-year term for mortgages insured by the Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation. I think this is a no-brainer. This is something that's going to happen at some point anyways. We've had 35, we've had 40-year amortizations before, and one of the easiest ways to make houses more affordable for people is to give them longer amortizations. Now, the downside of longer amortizations is it makes it so that people can afford more, which puts upward pressure on houses, but at least it will lower the payments for some. This is something that's going to be really contentious, because if they do this, they're absolutely going to increase the housing values even further. Essentially, taking and putting a 30-year amortization in place is the same thing as lowering interest rates, which is what caused the run-up in the housing prices over the last 18 months anyways. Pledging to create 500,000 quality affordable houses. This seems to be a common theme amongst the three parties, is creating more affordable housing. A 20% tax on homes purchased by foreign buyers. I don't know. I think this might be a good idea. I really don't know how this would play out, but a 20% tax would be probably something that would be beneficial on those foreign buyers, assuming it's people that are buying and not living in Canada versus people who are moving to Canada and living here. The one downside of this is in tourism areas like Whistler, Canmore, Banff, across the country, different tourism areas, limiting foreign buyers and discouraging foreign buyers could be a bad thing. So that could have a negative effect on those local economies. But, interesting idea. Waiving the federal portion of the GST, HST on construction of new affordable rental units. Probably not a bad idea. I think reducing taxes on anything is a good idea. Interesting, though, that this is an idea coming from the NDP where it's a reduction in taxes, because that is not typical of what they would do. I would be surprised if they got into power and actually did this. Doubling the homebuyers tax credit along the same lines as what the Liberals have promised to do. And then opening up borrowing restrictions to allow people to buy a home with friends and roommates. I'm not really sure how many restrictions there are in this right now. If somebody comes to us and wants to buy a home with a roommate or with a friend, they can do that. So I think this is a non-starter, non-issue. You also see the Conservatives have some ideas like that are things that are possible right now that they're saying they're going to open up, but there's no point in opening it up because it's already possible. And then making home inspections mandatory when selling a home. I think that's actually a great idea, is putting nationally a rule into play that makes those home inspections mandatory would be a great idea so people know what they're getting into. Because the problem with when you buy real estate is you see that property for maybe 20, 30 minutes, maybe you get a second showing and you see it again. But if you don't have a home inspection and you've only spent about an hour on a property, the chances of you finding anything that's wrong with it are pretty slim to none, which means you can be buying a house that has all sorts of problems and have no idea that that's what's actually happening. Now, as far as the overall NDP plan goes, I think it's good. I don't think it's great. I don't think there's anything earth-shattering in here. I don't think there's anything that that is going to reshape the market. I think there's some risk with respect to 30-year amortizations and the 20% tax on homes purchased by foreign buyers. But it's pretty vanilla with respect to the whole thing. And by the way, I'm an economist. I think differently. I think like an economist. So I'm likely not going to gravitate to very many NDP style ideas just because of my educational background and how I think as a person in the financial industry. Now, the one thing that they did really, really well is recommending the waive of the federal portion of the GST on purpose-built rental properties. I think that's actually a really great idea from the perspective of taxing people less and incentivizing the construction of new affordable rental units. So that's pretty good. Now, moving on to the Conservatives, a little bit shorter list here. If I'm being honest, and I probably have a tendency to vote Conservative more often. I've mentioned before that I'm politically agnostic. I tend to vote for whichever party I think is going to be better for the country at that point in time. So I don't always vote Conservative, but I don't always vote Liberal either. I tend to vote based on common sense and economic principles. I'm pretty disappointed with what the Conservatives have come up with here. They have some good ideas, they have some bad ideas, but the ideas coming out of the Liberal Party are a lot more in depth. There's a lot more of them. Again, I'm not sure they'll be able to deliver, but I think the Liberals have put a lot more thought into this. So first and foremost, aim to have 1 million homes built across the country in the next 3 years. I think adding supply is a given. They haven't said how they're going to do this. They're just saying that they are going to try to do this. But I think as a goal, as a target, probably a pretty good idea. Banning foreign investors from who are not living in Canada from buying houses for a 2-year period and encourage foreign investment in affordable purpose-built rentals. So I think this is a good idea, saying, hey, guys, you don't live in Canada, you're buying a property, maybe, and again, this has an effect on the tourist towns and all that stuff as well, but maybe you guys can hold off on buying properties, buying houses in Canada. But if you're going to buy properties that are purpose-built rental housing, we're going to let you come in, because having more foreign buyers come in, supply funds, park their money in Canada, but park it in properties that are being used for Canadians to live in. I think that's actually a really great idea. So I gotta commend them on this. Encourage new market in 7 to 10 mortgages to provide stability for first-time home buyers and lenders. This is ridiculous. Longer-term mortgages, longer-term fixed rates. The rule of thumb is if you take a fixed-rate mortgage, regardless of which direction interest rates are going, whether it's up or down, you feel more secure, but you end up paying more money, and therefore the banks make more profits. That's just the general rule. Creating a market in 7 to 10-year mortgages, I think, is ridiculous. If you want to create a market in longer-term mortgages, give us a 15 and a 30-year style mortgage like what's in the US, so people know that they've got 15 to 30 years to pay that rate and pay it. And if rates go down, they can refinance without penalty to a lower rate. In fact, if any of these parties wanted to really make an impact for Canadians when it came to out-of-pocket costs with respect to a mortgage, what they should be doing is they should be recommending that the banks no longer be able to charge the substantial penalties that they charge on 5-year fixed mortgages anyways. Take away the ability for the banks to add the discount back on the penalties. Take away the ability for banks like CIBC to provide cashbacks that have to be paid back in full, even if the client pays out their mortgage a day earlier. Basically make it easier for clients or consumers or Canadians to get out of a higher interest rate mortgage and into a lower interest rate mortgage so that they can save money. That's the one thing that they should be doing. All of these parties should be doing. None of them have brought it up. Adjusting the mortgage stress test to stop discriminating against small business owners, contractors, and other non-permanent employees, including casual workers. This one I don't get. Discriminating against these types of people. I don't get it because, quite frankly, every Canadian has to apply and deal with a stress test in exactly the same way. In fact, it is universal and everybody has to deal with it. So suggesting that you're going to give an advantage to small business owners, contractors, and other non-permanent employees, including casual workers, and keep in mind, I'm a small business owner, I think is absurd. And it also takes away the actual reason for the stress test being there, which is to make sure that people can absorb higher interest rates down the road should interest rates start to go up. So while I'm not necessarily a huge proponent of the stress test, I think if you're going to change it for everybody, not just a small group of people who, quite honestly, are not being discriminated against because they have to deal with it in the exact same way that all other Canadians have to. And last but not least, and this one is really important because there's been some rumors, there's been some talks that Liberals would like to get rid of the ability to avoid capital gains taxes. The Conservatives are making a commitment that they will never, ever, ever tax people on their capital gains when it comes to their principal residences. Now, there's one or two other ones in here I've seen in some of the other documents that they are talking about putting into place or the Conservatives have suggested putting into basically a 1093 exchange, which is an American term, where if somebody purchases or sells a rental property and then purchases another one, they can defer the taxes, defer the capital gains taxes on the rental properties. I think that's a pretty good idea. I'm surprised that this didn't hit the BNN document here because it's definitely something that's in the Conservative plans. But again, at the end of the day here, when you look at all three of the plans, there's a couple good ideas from the NDP. There's a couple good ideas from the Conservatives. There's a couple good ideas from the Liberals. There's bad ideas from all of them. My big concern with the Liberal platform is I think that most of what they're suggesting they aren't going to be able to follow through on. And they have a tendency to offer things like election reform and then never follow through on it unless it's advantageous to them. And again, I asked the question yesterday, why now? Why didn't they do these things 3 to 6 months ago when they were really needed and they would have had the support from the other parties to do, but they're suggesting it while they're in the middle of an election. I don't think they're going to follow through on a lot of the things that they have promised because, quite frankly, the track record of the last 6 years is, other than with marijuana, not following through on promises. And I have a feeling that even though the Liberal Party and their platform is significantly more comprehensive with respect to the housing market than the other two parties, I really, really, really do believe that they have very little intention of following through on all of the things that they have suggested that they're going to do. I think that they have little intention on following through on most of the things that they've suggested because they've had the opportunity to do it over the last 3, 6 to 9 months. So, again, I'm politically agnostic by nature. This isn't designed to convince you to vote for one party or another. It's not intended to support or discredit your personal narrative, but it is just a review of the housing platforms, the real estate platforms that the parties have. It's my opinion, of course. And if you found it useful, do me that favor. Hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, hit that like button so more people like you can see this video. And don't forget about that race to 25,000 subscribers. I sincerely hope you, yes you, because you made it to the very end of what is otherwise for me a very, very, very long video. I hope you are the winner. Cheers. We'll see you in the next video.